Hello, 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 hello. It feels so good to be back. I hope you're excited to have me in your earbuds as I am to be in your earbuds. How about I took a break? I took a break. My team took a break. I stepped away from the podcast because it was time. And I know we're talking about how to restart when you've fallen off the wagon, but I want to thank you. I want to thank you for being a listener. If this is your first time listening to my podcast, thank you for being here. If you are an avid listener and you've been waiting for this day to come, thank you also for being here. If you're new here and you discovered me from my pop-up podcast, thank you for being here as well. We're going to talk about how to restart when you've fallen off the wagon or when you've fallen off the routine, but it would be remiss of me to not explain the break. I love my podcast. I love connecting with people. I love the messages that you guys give me. And I like to read the reviews when I get them. So please leave me a review because I haven't gotten one in a while. But I felt myself getting pulled in a lot of different directions, and it felt like it was the right time to stop. The first couple of times I did the podcast, I said, I want to go for at least 6 months because that feels good. And I stopped around episode 26. That first season stopped because I was transitioning with my editor. I was transitioning with my business offers, and I needed to take a step away from the podcast to see where was my business going and how could my podcast facilitate that. So once I got an idea of there was no Kari Roberts coaching, we were moving into online business management and strategy primarily. I shifted my content, and once I made that shift, it was about 4 weeks. We were back hitting the ground running. I ran into a lot of issues trying to schedule and record and get things going last year over the summer, which is when I realized creating podcasts in the summer is a little bit challenging. People go on breaks. I want to go on break and so on and so forth. So the second season was stopped really because I was tired. Um, I needed a break and I wasn't enjoying it as much. And I wanted to take a break because it was the summertime and that's what everybody else was doing. The third season started in the fall, and the third season was going very well. The downloads have been going, everything's been going well, but in the background, my team was growing. I was growing as a leader. I was bringing on new clients. We were losing clients, bringing on more clients, losing team members, replacing team members, trying to figure out what my next big offer was going to be because I'm still a visionary in my business with a ton of ideas. And I felt that I didn't want to get to a point where I was with season two. I didn't want to get to a point where I felt that I couldn't give my podcast what it needed. So I stopped it even when it was felt like I should have still kept going just to preserve my bandwidth and whatnot. Did that. I have to say, at the time of recording this first episode, I can tell you almost every one of my interview episodes have already been recorded. My team is completely managing my podcast production. All I'm doing pretty much is showing up and recording, which feels amazing. And it feels, one of my friends slash clients, she always says things should feel light and easy. And it feels really light and easy. And even though I thought several times about jumping back to the podcast, I honored the space that I wanted to give myself objectively. And I stuck to that. And we are here coming back in your earbuds in the end of June of 2022. So, in the midst of all of that, I had some things going on personally in the spring, and it really affected my ability to just have a routine. And my husband has called me out several times like, Kari, you're not really managing your time well. You're not keeping yourself accountable. And it really stung because I said, I used to call myself a time management strategist. I mean, I'm pretty good at figuring out how to find pockets of time and getting things done. But you know what? Everybody's not perfect and everybody has weaknesses and falls short. And I was that person. My father had a pretty intense orthopedic surgery in the beginning of April. I went home to be a caregiver because you guys know I am a physical therapist. And that was emotionally a little bit more heavy of a lift than I was prepared for. Providing care for someone that you love is totally different than providing care for a client. And I learned that in the trenches. And then I had a very tumultuous trip coming home. For a very important event, I am one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and the only thing we celebrate is the memorial of Jesus' death. And I almost missed that because of trying to get home with airline issues and flights getting canceled and all of that. That really rocked me. And then I had some health issues come up of my own, back and forth to the doctor. I'm going to the specialist in a couple of weeks for a follow up. And I just was not able to maintain my routine. And when I don't have a routine, it's hard for me to be productive. When people are under stress, they say it's either fight or flight. And I personally think it's fight, flight, or freeze. And when I'm under stress, I definitely partake in freezing. So nothing gets done. Laundry gets piled up. Food doesn't get cooked. I'm laying around, not getting out of bed. I'm not exercising. It's like I need that external accountability sometimes to get things done. And it's hard to be that self starter sometimes. So I found myself in a position where I didn't have a routine in my home life. And so when I don't have a routine in my home life, being that this business is a work from home business, it's difficult to get the business to have a routine. Now, of course, I have clients, my team has clients, we've got clients to serve, we've got bills to pay, so that can't not happen. But aside from client work, everything felt kind of a little up in the air and a little hazy. And no, I wasn't lacking motivation. I definitely have the motivation and the drive to get things done and accomplish goals, but I was just finding it hard to get in the routine to keep the needle moving at a comfortable pace. So I went back to the basics, and when I went back to the basics, retrospectively, I realized I kind of had a little bit of a system that I followed to get back on track. So we are coming into the beginning of Q3 at the time of when this goes live. We are embarking into the summertime. Schedules shift in the summertime for everybody. Schedules look different. You're busier because you're visiting family and creating new memories and doing traveling and all of those things. Or it's a slower pace because you're slowing down. You're not doing as much with work. You're slowing down to be with family and friends. Either way, the routine looks different. And so I thought that this was a perfect time to talk about how to get back on the horse, how to get back on your routine when you have fallen off. So I've got 3 steps for you. The first thing is to acknowledge it. It is okay to fall off your routine. That is quite all right. Everybody does it. Nobody is perfect. If you've fallen off your routine, you're in good company because I just rattled on about how many minutes about how I fell off mine and stayed off mine for a while. So that's the first thing. Go ahead and acknowledge that you fell off the wagon, and that's okay. Now, what we have to do is, I guess this is kind of like step number 2. Acknowledge that what we're going to do next is make a new routine. And I think reframing it as to making a new routine feels lighter and fresher and engaging and maybe a little fun, as opposed to trying to get back on the old one. Because when we're trying to get back onto something that we fell off of, sometimes we bring that shame and that guilt and that frustration with us. Whereas when we're doing something new, then we come with a more positive outlook and joy and expectation of what all it holds. So come to that routine. It's your new routine, right? This is not a routine you've ever done on June the 21st of 2022. This is your first time ever having June the 21st of 2022. So let's bring a new routine to that. That's step number 2. Now, step number 3, we want to get back to the basics. If you've heard me talk on other episodes of this podcast or other podcasts that I've been in, you should probably know that the way I plan for weeks is different than the way I plan for my day, is different than the way that I plan for my month. And most times when I'm in my groove, planning for a month and pulling it in and zeroing into a week and then pulling it in and zeroing into a day is what feels really good for me. But when I have no routine, looking at the month feels extremely overwhelming. So we're talking about how to restart, right? So what I did was I just said, Kari, we're just going to plan tomorrow. We're just going to plan tomorrow. And we're just going to do daily. And it might be two things. I think when I started back using my planner, because I missed about a month and a half of my planner, I just was like, we're gonna do the basics. We're gonna make sure you pray, make sure you meditate, make sure you get your water, and get these dogs out for a 30-minute walk. And that was it. Just a little something that I felt like I should be doing on a regular basis. But instead of saying, oh, you should be doing this, no, now these are going to be action items. And what happens is it made me feel good about it. Praying, meditating, drinking my water, walking my dogs, that made me feel good physically, but then mentally I get that dopamine hit because now I did something good. So then the next day, now it's do a not networking, do a marketing effort for your business and pray and meditate and walk the dogs and drink your water. And then the next day is, maybe having meaningful conversation with my husband and a marketing effort and so on and so forth. So what I really did was I went back to my basics of what I wanted to do as a human being, and I set those as my daily tasks. Once I picked up some traction with the daily tasks for a few days, then I felt like I was comfortable. Let's kind of do a bird's eye view for the week. And let's get some things plotted down for the week. Oh, I've got a doctor's appointment on Tuesday. Oh, I've got this weekly call with my client on Thursday. Oh, I've got this other client. I've got to follow up with her on Voxer on Thursday morning. Start to plot those things in and still put those check marks there for walking the dog, getting my water, and praying and meditating. After a week of planning went well, I said, let me do another one. So I did that second week of planning. And by that time, now I was back in the habit of getting a daily and weekly routine. And then I felt comfortable enough so that when I cracked open my planner for May, I was able to write my overarching plan for May. Now, I'm not going to get too into the weeds about how I actually plan. I've done that in the past. If you want me to do an update of that, definitely send me a DM in my Instagram or send me a message on my email and let me know that that's what you want. So then that way I can give you that. Also, if you want to hear about that, go ahead and leave me a review and tell me what you guys want to hear. I'm anxious to be giving you what you need. Okay, so that was step number 3, going back to the basics. And then step number 4 is allowing the wins to build the momentum, which I did kind of explain in step number 3. I kind of got ahead of myself. So I allowed those daily wins, those daily tests to motivate me to build momentum, to do weekly planning, which motivated me to build up the momentum to do the monthly planning. And then it took about 4 weeks, but by the end of the 4 weeks, I had a routine. So here we are at the time of recording, the end of May, and I am in the habit of getting up and out of my bed at a regular hour. I am in the habit of popping up and being active. I like to be productive starting at 7 o'clock, at least during the week, at least 4 days out of the week. Doesn't always happen, doesn't always have to happen, but I still set my alarm so that if I needed to do something that day, like today, I needed to do some client work before I did some work for my business and run some errands. So I was up at my computer at 7 a.m. doing what I needed to do for my clients so I could have time to do what I need to do for my business so I could have time to run some personal errands. So that's what worked for me, and that's how I was able to restart when I fell off my routine, and I hope that can help you as well. So just to review, the first thing we're going to do is acknowledge that we fell off our routine, and that is quite all right. Number 2 is we're going to go in with the mindset of not going back to the old routine and trying to dust it off, but we're going in with the new, fresh perspective of starting a brand new routine. Third, we're going to go back to the basics, which for me looks like starting with a daily plan. And then the fourth thing is we're going to allow those wins from those basics to help us build momentum so that we can start to inch back into our routine. Now, let's do some freedom questions. My favorite book right now, I haven't read a book or listened to a book lately. I've been really listening to podcasts lately. So my favorite book right now, I'm going to go back with We Should All Be Millionaires. I'm going to go back with We Should All Be Millionaires because I really like that book. I thought that book was excellent. The next thing, my favorite tool, without saying the same tool that I keep saying is my favorite tool, I'm going to say is Voxer, because Voxer allows me to keep up with my team in real time for those quick, short questions. It also allows me to check in with business buddies and they check in with me. It's a way that my company or my clients can reach out to me. And, I'm a verbal processor, so it's nice to be able to have the option to speak to people. And how do I find freedom with simple systems? That first S, keeping it simple. Definitely keeping it simple. I've got some health things going on, nothing scary, but just things that need attention. And that's what I'm doing, keeping it simple. Just making sure I'm getting my sleep in, making sure I'm drinking my water, making sure I'm moving my body a little bit. And that seems to be working really well. So thank you for listening to season 4. I'm so happy to be here. I hope you're happy to listen, and I'll be back in your earbuds next Thursday.